I never thought I would be a fan of any brand, corporation, or company ever. But the past few years, Xbox was finally that for me. And it was mostly because of the freedom, the creativity, and the backing that their teams were now getting, that they could finally make the games that they want to make and have the means to do so and not have to worry about doing a Kickstarter, finding a publisher, making something that will sell. That was the biggest thing. And we, the fans, got to experience every single one of these entries and try it out. But now, I don't think I have that faith anymore. And the worst part is I think we did this. And I had a part to play in it. You've heard by now, I'm sure. Xbox has made the call to shut down essentially 4 of their teams. Being Alpha Dog Games. I'm not going to edit much in this, by the way. I don't want to cover this with any fluff or anything. Just Alpha Dog Games, Roundhouse, and Arcane Austin, and Tango Gameworks. That's the big one that everybody's been freaking out about a lot. And there's things to say about the other ones that I think should be said. There's a lot of people that might be thinking, well, what makes this different? Why did you guys not care about when EA did this or when this company did that or when this studio shut down or what makes it different amongst all these other layoffs? And that's a fair thing. This is a year that layoffs are happening like crazy. That's absolutely fair. The difference I would say with this is the massive piling amount of statements that are now severely contradicted. And this is also being decided by a company that has invested more than any other gaming publisher out there into what is going to be this division. They invested like $80 billion over the past 10 years into adding all these teams to Xbox now. And there is a perfect statement that encompasses this whole thing that really makes Hi-Fi Rush the difference. The difference. Ryan McCaffrey on Twitter, he brought this quote that was, I believe, from the Kind of Funny interview back in 2023. And I want to read this because it's kind of what is... I've been collecting my thoughts the past day or two, and now I'm like, I think I know the main thing that I believe should be the conversation here. Phil Spencer said, "One thing I won't do is push against creative aspirations of our teams. When a team like Rare wants to do Sea of Thieves, when a team like Obsidian wants to do Grounded, when Tango wants to do Hi-Fi, when everyone thought they would probably do Evil Within 3, I want to give the teams the creative platform to go and push their ability, to push their aspirations." And it's examples like that we've seen. There's a lot of times that Obsidian said Pentiment would never have happened if it wasn't for the Game Pass model. Because we know people will play this game because we have that backing to do that. We've seen them join because of that very reason. They want the backing to make the projects that they want to make. They've even said it on stage. There was the time Matt Booty welcomed Double Fine as an Xbox Game Studios, telling Tim in front of millions, hey, you don't need to make what we want you to make. You just make what you want to make. And Tim was like, thank God, because I was lying. When Hi-Fi Rush supposedly breaks every metric that Xbox had that defined success, and it was in the running for my Game of the Year last year. It was really tough, but it was in the running. And it was the Game of the Year for many, and got accolades up the wazoo, nominated for 5 Game Awards, and many other outside that show. When you finally have had this huge success from one of your new studios, Your response is to shut it down? From a studio that is your only Japanese one, that is another statement. We really want to invest in Japan. This is the time. And Tango Gameworks is going to be that company that we reinvest in. Because we finally have it. We finally have a Japanese studio, and we're gonna shut it down. After they just made success. And that's why a lot of people are thinking this is different, and they're latching onto this, because this is a moment that success happened, and this is what the reward was. I have to cut myself off so many times in this, because my mind is seriously, gang, has been going to so many different places. And there's so many metrics that maybe Hi-Fi Rush didn't meet. You know, it had 4 million players, but who knows how many of those were Game Pass, and maybe that affected it. I don't know. But the main thing that's been hitting me as a fan, again, the first time I have been a fan of anything in my life that wasn't an individual IP or a team or a game or a movie, whatever. This was an actual company or division I was starting to become a fan of. And now it's hard to be that because of the numerous things that was said in the past, that this statement, this decision shakes everything of. Phil said, we're going to bet on Arcane Austin's future. They've had a great pedigree up until Redfall, and we want to bet on that future. And a lot of people at the Redfall team said, we're like, yeah, we kind of hope they shut it down because this wasn't the kind of game we wanted to make, but we're making it because at the time, ZeniMax wanted us to do it. Hi-Fi Rush was a breakout hit. That's what Aaron Greenberg said. Like every metric, it was a breakout hit. We want to reinvest in Tango. We have a mobile direction. Let's bring it back to the other studios that people aren't talking about. We have this mobile direction we want to go. That was the whole, supposedly, the reason they wanted to reach out to Activision Blizzard King. And they're shutting down the 2 mobile teams that Bethesda had with Roundhouse and Alpha Dog. Now Roundhouse is being moved into ZeniMax to support. But what makes me worried about this is that did this Activision Blizzard King stuff actually become an infection? Did this move actually severely impact the direction that Xbox is going to go? Because, and this is the part that a lot of people, I'm sorry, but I'm about to upset you and a lot of people here. I don't see this as a decision Phil Spencer made. This just doesn't sound like that higher up team. And a team that knows what Xbox's problem was. It's totally out of left field and goes against all the statements they've been saying. This feels like it was a Microsoft move. You have to remember, Xbox is not Microsoft. It is a division of Microsoft, and it is ran by people that understand what Xbox is, but the people at Microsoft are going to tell Phil Spencer what to do as the guy in charge of it, and he has to make Pep proud. I shouldn't have said Pep, sorry. And I just feel like this Activision Blizzard stuff, they probably saw the revenue that they were doing and were just like, wow, now that we have them, it's really interesting to see how they were doing things. They call Phil up as he was going on his tour of all these studios. Hey, what do you guys want to do? And then a month later, Satya or whoever is just like, hey, they were actually doing a lot of great stuff. You're not going to stop that, are you? Actually, can you make Bethesda do what they were doing? Get rid of these studios that are not money makers. And shout out to JoeySTRIKE from my community. I think he looked into it, and I'll trust your word, Joey, because it sounds right that they weren't money makers. These teams just weren't money makers. Shut them down, pull other resources instead of funding those teams, pull the resources to expand the teams that are making the bigger stuff. And the scariest part about this, gang, is the message it sends to the other teams. What does this do for Ninja Theory? They're about to release Hellblade 2, my most anticipated game of the year. And if it doesn't blow, do Power World numbers, then Ninja Theory's probably next to go. We saw the co-founder leave previously, which is a trend that a lot of these other studios have been doing. Obsidian, they have things in the works. They got Avowed coming up. They got Outer Worlds 2 coming up. They experimented with Pentiment, but is that a team really making them the numbers that they want? And Double Fine. These are the three teams that I thought as indie teams were such a cool thing to be able to imagine what they can do. And Double Fine is peak of that as a team that was super indie for years. They literally would do Kickstarters to get their projects up, and it is a team that's like, I don't want to do Banjo-Kazooie, the game I want Xbox to do most. We don't want to do it because we want to do other things. Obsidian, Ninja Theory, and Double Fine are three indie teams that decided to bet on Xbox, to sell themselves to Xbox. And if I hear any of those three go, I don't know what to do. Fear of failure impacts creativity. And all these teams now have the fear of failure. If we don't make a game that is going to impress the higher-ups so much, it doesn't matter if it's critically acclaimed. It doesn't matter if it's critically acclaimed, like Hi-Fi Rush. That doesn't matter. You could be nominated for awards up the wazoo and get over 80 on Metacritic and all that jazz, but that doesn't matter to the higher-ups. Tango Gameworks was an example of that. Even if we make a great game that people love, that's doing different things, that is like on some of the Game of the Year lists for many influencers or journalists or whatever, that shit doesn't matter. So we have to make something super safe, super profitable, and if we don't, we're dead. That's the exact opposite of the thing that made me love Xbox. I wasn't a shill for Xbox. I was a shill for the creativity that these teams could now do under Xbox. And I didn't expect it all to be good, but I was happy to hear these teams get to make what they want to make. But this sends a message. This puts a gun to every team that's under Microsoft Gaming. If you don't make fantastic results, whatever, you're gone. We just cut Bethesda's game studios nearly in half. That's what can happen to you. Make good shit that sells. Don't worry about it being creative. Don't worry about making what you want to make. Don't worry about taking risks. Just make something that makes that Call of Duty number that we now have. This is why Toys for Bob probably wanted to get out. I did a whole stream about that. I was really conflicted. Like, why did Toys for Bob go? I was actually looking forward to seeing Toys for Bob. That's the only thing from the Activision deal that I was excited about. Why did they leave? Now I'm glad they left. I'm glad they just have a partnership with Xbox because they can't shut them down. They are now an indie team that gets to make the contracts to make the games they want and try to appeal to people and make the games they want, whatever. But they aren't under somebody's reign. And this is where I say a lot of people finally convinced me that this acquisition era of Xbox, I admit, I don't think it was a good idea. If they, instead of spending $70 billion on Activision Blizzard, which I think there is positive, don't get me wrong, I think there is still a great chance of Blizzard, especially Blizzard, thriving. And I'm hoping the teams that Activision had can be more free, but I severely don't believe that they will now. But I believe Blizzard will be free. And I think there will be good, especially they've shooken up the leadership a lot there. There is good in these acquisitions, but it makes me think it just was way too early to do it. It was way too early to do it. And that $70 billion should have gone elsewhere, but But if Activision was selling, then Tencent could have bought them. Amazon could have. Who knows who would have bought Activision Blizzard? And that begs the question, was it a good move for Xbox? You know, that's the problem, is if people sell, they're going to sell. That's not going to stop that. So there's so many, my head's been so many places, guys. But the main thing that's got me bugged about this is the message it sends to the creators at Xbox and their fear of trying anything risky, of trying anything new, and making innovation of any kind. Because if they see this now, they're all going to play it safe. They're not going to do anything risky, and they're not going to try to make something that could be spectacular, but rather make something safe. And I think we did this. Matt Booty said in this whole decision, like, the reason we're doing it is we want to increase investment and focus on priority games. And that makes me think this is removing what was Xbox's biggest strength, is they had many smaller niche IP that wasn't going to be for everybody, that were maybe AA or had a very targeted audience, but that also meant that they didn't have any massive AAA big blockbuster type games like the new God of War or Zelda or whatever, because they didn't have those big marketed IP that people know. And that's where I think we took a big part in this. We would complain about that, and we wouldn't bother with these smaller IP. I've already rambled about that. And that's why I'm like, did I play a part in this? And I really worry about the future of Xbox if we cause this.